fine with that. So let me get started by a little bit of background information. Number one, what we're going to talk about tonight mostly is need-based financial aid. There are two types. Need-based, my family can't afford to pay this, we need money to do so. And merit-based, I have such a good academic record, I am the Pennsylvania state champion in the long jump, I am the greatest cello player in the universe. These are talents and accomplishments I have that might compel you as a college to award me money for these accomplishments. That's called merit-based aid. Now, it may surprise you, 87% of the financial aid that goes to students in the United States is need-based, not merit-based. So this is, in a sense, a relief to most people, because it means that you may not need to be the top person admitted to a college, or even the middle person admitted to a college, in order to get financial aid. The first one in and the last one in are both eligible for financial aid because it's need-based, not based on when you are accepted. It's need-based to do. Now, does money sometimes run out? Yes. So one of the things I'll urge you to do is to fill out the forms as early as possible. However, you cannot even begin filling them out until October of your senior year. And again, I'll get to that as we go through this. So I'm going to start the presentation. There'll be a slideshow, of course, but then any questions that come up, you can unmute and ask, or you could put them in the chat and Josh will alert me if that's the case. So let me share screen. Let me go to the presentation on financial aid. Woohoo! Right. So the basics of financial aid. Let me go to the slideshow. Slideshow from the beginning. Right. And I tried to use a soothing color. It's kind of like a pink, purple, lavender, fuchsia type of color here, because this can be a bit of a hassle. And I'm going to warn you, some of this presentation is not going to be especially interesting. It's not, I'll be honest with you, but it's necessary to help you understand how this financial aid process works. So lesson number one is going to go back to the 1960s. Prior to the 1960s, the United States government spent $0, as in zero, providing assistance to colleges. $0. Now, when was the first college founded in the United States? 1636. So more than 300 years, neither the government of our country or of our state was allocating money to the colleges. Now, you might be thinking, whoa, wait a minute. Wait, Cigus, my grandfather went to college on the GI Bill. Yes, if you served in World War II and came back in one piece, God bless, you were able to dip into a government fund called the GI Bill, GI for soldier, general identification, and you were able to go to college on the GI Bill. That was given to people, not to the colleges. That was given to people and not to the colleges to do. So it wasn't until the 1960s that the United States government actually stepped in to regulate financial aid for high school students going to college and to begin to regulate the schools themselves. So the Elementary and Secondary Education Act passed in 1964, and the Higher Education Authorization Act passed in 1965. So let me just point out here that I was in high school when all of this happened. That's how old I am. Okay? There's two primary driving points. The first one is that it is the responsibility of the student and family to pay for college. That was written right into the law. Now, this is not the case for first grade to 12th grade. What about kindergarten? I guess no. Kindergarten is not a mandated program. It is not a mandated program. Do all school districts offer it? They do. They do. And they get money typically from the state, but not from the federal government for that. So 1 through 12, you are entitled to a free and appropriate public education that is paid for. Once you graduate, or once you reach your 22nd birthday, if you're a student with special needs, then you do not qualify for that aid. This is very different from other countries around the world. So, for example, if we were in Germany, we would not be having this webinar, because German institutions, German universities are free, as in no money, free. If you are a Dutch citizen and go to school in the Netherlands, it will cost you about $3,000 a year. In the United Kingdom, it's about $8,000 a year. Most of the schools in the socialist countries in Eastern Europe are free. But the United States is different. When our system was set up for colleges, the colleges were left to be individuals on their own. We do not have a federal system. So that, for example, if you go to the United Kingdom, Great Britain, England, Great Britain, Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, all 193 universities in those 4 countries are in one system. One system. Not here in the US, because what is one of the major characteristics of the United States? Individualism. We want to do things our way. So one point was, it is the responsibility of the student and the family to pay for college. The second driving point, and this is a killer, is that debt doesn't count. What does that mean? Well, one of the incentives that people have to be able to invest in a home and be able to have money that they can use when they sell their home is something called a mortgage. A mortgage means that you take out a big loan from a bank and you pay the bank certain payments each month until it's all paid off. Mortgages can run from 10 years to 30 years. I think 30 is probably the most common one. So if you're paying $2,000 a month in a mortgage, that's $24,000 a year. That's debt. But the financial aid form does not ask about debt. So the people who are looking to provide financial aid to you think that you have $24,000 more than you actually have. Another example, car payments. You pay $350 a month for your GTL. Okay, so that's $4,200 a year that's unaccounted for. You send $800 a month to your great grandparents in Poland in order to help them survive. $9,600 a year, not accounted for. So even though the country really encourages people to buy homes because it creates neighborhoods, it stabilizes communities, you end up paying for it twice because you have the mortgage and your debt doesn't count. Now, I apologize for this. I didn't make these rules. I'm reporting what we have. So is the responsibility of the student and family to pay, and debt doesn't count. So the costs of college are twofold. There's the ones that you can see, so tuition, fees, on-campus room and board. You'd be surprised how many colleges have special fees. Well, what are these fees for? So I guess, well, laboratory fees, locker fees, athletic fees. Ugh, my goodness. One of the biggest offenders is New York University, NYU. You will pay about $6,000 over 4 years in fees to NYU. But there's also indirect costs that don't necessarily show up. So the books, remember books? Oh my God. Supplies, everybody has to have a great highlighter, right? Technology, you need a laptop. If you don't live on campus, the room and board, personal expenses, travel costs, weekly pizza, they don't show up. But you have to take them into account because you're going to need to pay that to do. How is a student's financial aid calculated? It's the difference between the cost of attendance, take away any financial assistance outside. So you get $5,000 from your grandmother, you get $2,000 from the local stock club, whatever the case might be. And then the amount the student and the family is expected to pay is called the estimated family contribution, EFC. And you can see these people love acronyms. So COA, the cost of attendance, minus the estimated family contribution, EFC, is the student's need. That's what the student would be expected to pay. What calculates this? It's something called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, the FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A. Please note that first word. It's the greatest F word in the English language, free. What's the second greatest F word in the English language? Food. Therefore, the greatest phrase in the English language is free food. So, free. The website is posted here, and there's no charge to complete the FAFSA. However, spammers are pretty clever. So they know that you might make a mistake. You might put FAFSA.org or FAFSA.com or FAFSA.edu. Well, guess what? You'll open up to a site that looks exactly like the FAFSA website, except somebody's going to charge you. Do not pay. Do not pay. It's free. So you start at the FAFSA and you apply. Well, actually, you don't. One of your parents or guardians and you, one of your parents and guardians and you must create federal student aid IDs. Because if you don't, then you can't sign the document electronically. You'll have to print it out and mail it. And that's going to slow things up a month or more. So you want to make those IDs first. It takes about 10, 15 minutes. And once you have them, save your login information because you got to do the FAFSA every year you're in college. It doesn't hold for 4 years because your income changes, your assets change. Maybe you hit the lottery. Maybe don't even want to think about this. One of your parents loses their jobs. So make sure you keep somewhere that information about your ID. Then you can jump over to the FAFSA and actually begin it. Well, what is it? It's a federally managed document. It's actually part of the Department of Education. And it is run by a wonderful, wonderful person named Cindy Forbes Cameron. She is the manager of the FAFSA, and she is a riot. She is just one of the most naturally amusing people in the world. She's a total wonk, like a total numbers dork, but that makes her even funnier with this. So it inquires about your income, student, and your money in the bank, your assets, and it inquires about your family's income, your parents, the money they earn through work, and their assets. So both you and your parent or guardian will complete separate information on the form. The FAFSA then calculates this EFC, estimated family contribution, and reports this to you and to the colleges to which you apply. Okay, so I have my EFC and I'm going to anticipate getting some money from the colleges. Well, where does it actually come from? Well, the federal government and the state government will take the first shot. The federal government has a number of grants, and of course there's loans as well. I'll get to that in a little while. And then the state of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Authority, will also be able to give some money. You may be directed to complete several extra questions for Pennsylvania after you finish the FAFSA. That is worth doing. So anything private here is not included. So the federal government, the most money you can get from the federal government is around $8,000 a year. And the most you can get from the state of Pennsylvania is roughly $4,800 a year. So that would be $13,000 if you qualified. You could go to CCP easily on that for a year, easily. You can't go to most other colleges for that amount of money. So that would mean you would need financial aid. Okay, so scholarships and grants are the first kind. That's the best kind because you don't have to repay that. It's a gift. Loans. What? Loans? Yeah, loans. You have to repay loans, but it's still aid. Why is it called aid? Well, number one, the interest levels for federal funded loans is the lowest ever. In fact, right now, because of the pandemic, it's zero, no interest. So if you borrow $5,500, you pay back $5,500. Like what? Like really? Like what? That's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
We have a question.
Go ahead, Josh.
It says, do the colleges reach out to you for scholarships and grants, or do you apply for them?
Yes and no. Okay. Most colleges do not reach out to you for need-based aid because that comes from the FAFSA. But for merit-based scholarships, most colleges will consider you for a merit-based scholarship just by the fact that you apply. There are some larger merit scholarships that do require a separate application. I'll cover the merit aid toward the end of this. I'll make sure we get through that, Bella. Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, so loans, right? No interest now, but even before the no interest, the loan rate was really low. Like you couldn't get a loan like that from your local bank, really low. In some cases, you get a subsidized loan, which means the government pays the interest till you finish school. That's great. The unsubsidized loans, you have to start paying the interest after 90 days. And then there's another program called work study. This is not just getting, and some people think it's this. It's not just getting a job on campus. It's a federally funded program. So let's say you decide to attend the University of Maryland, even though the state of Maryland has the ugliest state flag ever. So you attend the University of Maryland and you get a job in the library and the rate is $12 an hour. Well, the University of Maryland pays you $3 an hour and the federal government pays the rest. The other $9 an hour comes from the federal government. So you can see that colleges love this work study program to do. So those are the kinds of aids that you can get. Are there any other forms that you have to complete? Well, yes. About 200 colleges require something called the CSS, College Scholarship Search Profile. This can be found on the College Board website. Don't we love the College Board? Isn't that one of our favorite agencies ever? Ugh. And it's not even free. You actually have to pay to use this profile. Thanks, College Board, right? What are the first three letters of the word Satan? That's right, SAT. Is that an accident? I don't think so, okay? So about 200 individual colleges and scholarship programs use this. So you're thinking, wait a minute, come on, Cigus. I have to pay you to tell me where to get money? That's nuts. Yeah, it is, but it's not a scam. Here's the reason why you would want to do this. Because the profile analyzes resources much more thoroughly than the FAFSA. Now debt counts. Now that mortgage makes a difference. So individual colleges can now use their own methods to provide aid. Most of the schools that require this profile have a ton of money to give. And a family is more likely to receive aid from these schools. And I'll show you how that works. The profile is a pain in the butt, much more work than the FAFSA, but believe me, it's worth it. Okay?
I have a question real quick.
Go ahead, Mel.
So if they require it, you still have to pay for it. So like you have to pay for something that's required.
You are a sharp tack, Bella. Yes, you do. You do. The trade-off is that you are applying to get money. Now, if your family qualifies for fee waivers, you can get a fee waiver from College Board and you will not have to pay. But the expectation is if you can afford applying to college, you can afford to pay for this. Okay, so good question, great question. So going back about 20 years ago, there was a show on TV called Twin Peaks. Very strange show with spooky music. And one of the themes in the show is that the owls are not what they seem. So here I'm saying some things are not what they seem. So you would normally think, okay, the colleges that cost the least, these are going to be the better bargains, right? Because some schools these days cost like $75,000. But many of these super expensive schools in our country are the ones that have the most generous financial aid. Are you ready? Take a look. You apply to the Penn State main campus. Your cost of attendance is $36,400. That's if you're in state. The average financial aid that Penn State distributes is $6,357. So the actual cost is $13 short of $30,000 a year. You apply to University of Pennsylvania, private school, $71,750. Oh my God, it's twice as much as Penn State. But the average financial aid is $43,000. So the actual cost of Penn is $1,000 less than Penn State. Less than Penn State. Now, that's if you qualify for the average financial aid award. You could qualify for less. You could qualify for more. You can. I've had students that have attended the University of Pennsylvania for $0 because their estimated family contribution was $0. And the University of Pennsylvania can afford to pay all of that. There's only about 200 schools in the country that can do that. Drexel cannot do that. Temple cannot do that. The University of the Arts cannot do that. Villanova cannot do that. These schools are very fortunate that they have the money that they do. So you don't have to worry. If you get into Penn, they will make sure you can attend. One more example, okay? Rutgers. Rutgers is the Penn State of New Jersey, the large state institution. So their cost of attendance, $33,400. Average financial aid, I know how people mock out New Jersey all the time, but they're more generous than our state. So the average financial aid at Rutgers is almost $13,000. So the actual cost for a New Jersey resident to go to Rutgers is $20,000. Princeton, private university, about 15 miles south of New Brunswick, $74,000 plus per year, but the average financial aid is $52,600. So the actual cost of going to Princeton is less than $1,000 more than going to Rutgers. Plus there's a Wawa on campus at Princeton, so there. So
I have a question.
go ahead, Bella.
So I went to the open house for Princeton like a week ago, and they were saying that you have to fill out like a separate form for Princeton financial aid because they use that to like give you like more reliable answers on money. So what is that extra form? Is it the same thing that you went over before?
No, Bella, it's yet another pain in the butt. There are some schools, Princeton being one of them, Penn being another, NYU being a third, that have their own financial aid forms. And that's a third form that you must fill out. It's a lot of time and effort, but boy, is it worth it. Consider this. Let's say it takes you 10 hours to complete the FAFSA, the profile, and Princeton's forms, 10 hours. In return, you get $60,000 worth of financial aid. You just earned $6,000 an hour. Think of it that way, okay?
Thank
So
you.
yes, Princeton has a lot of money, but they want to make sure that they distribute it the right way to do. Okay, so it's not the sticker price that matters. Now, I'm not trying to tell you you're going to buy a used car here, but if you look at that price and you back away, you're shivering like, oh my God. Stop, compose yourself and say, okay, what do people actually really pay? Well, what you want to do here is you want to go to the website on the college and look up something called the net cost calculator. This allows you to enter all of your data, parents' income, student income, parents' money in the bank, students' money in the bank, and you'll get an estimate within 5% of what a family of your means got the year before. So now you have a solid idea of what the actual cost of that college is going to be for you. It's not probably going to be $70,000, right? So let me, hold on, let me move this guy out of here. Let me get to my little X here. And I'm going to go to a different website now. This is called the finaid.org, financialaid.org. This is a private website maintained by a wonderful man named Mark Kantrowitz. Mark is a retired financial aid officer. Mark brings this website about on his own. Nobody pays him to do this. He does this because it's the right thing to do. Okay? So let me move this guy up here. So see where it says calculators here. Okay. I'm going to go down here where it says expected family contribution. Now, this is a very simplified way to do this, but I want to show you what happens when the FAFSA is computed. Okay, ready? So student status dependent. That means that you depend on your parents' income. State of residence, We live in Pennsylvania. Okay. Household size. Okay. So mom and dad, dad and dad, mom and mom. So you got two parents. Let's say you have a younger sister that drives you crazy. Okay. And let's say your grandmother lives with you. So you got 5 people in the household. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many people are going to be in college? Just you. Just you. Right? Number of parents in the household, 2. Now here's a weird question. Age of oldest parent. What? Why are they asking that? Well, a parent who's older gets more protection of the money that they have than a parent that's younger. What's the reasoning? Well, if I'm 62 years old, I'm going to retire in the next couple of years. I'm not going to be making more money. If I'm 42 years old, it's going to be 20 plus years before I retire. So let's say your dad is, let's make your dad what, 44? Not 14, sorry. Make your dad 44. Did your parents file taxes? Yes. If your parents didn't file taxes, please don't tell me. Okay. So let's say your parents both worked. So let's say your father was a dispatcher for the Philadelphia Police Department and your mom was a septic conductor. So between the two of them, they made $130,000. Okay, sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Right? So income tax, how much did they pay? Well, if you're making that amount of money, you're probably paying about 20%. So $26,000. So first parent, this is dad. Dad made $64,000 a year. This is mom. Mom made $66,000 a year. Untaxed income. Like somebody's going to report that. Oh, did I say that? No. Okay. Untaxed income. Parent savings. How much money is in the checking account? How much money is in the savings account? How much? This is not retirement income. Please assure your parents, if they have a pension, if they have an IRA, if they have a 401, any of that is not included, not included. So this is just savings and checking account. So let's say it's 4722. Investments, right. Business, right. So now here's your income. Did you file taxes? Well, yes, if you made $7,700 or more, so that's a no. What was your income? You made $830 last year babysitting. Okay. Untaxed income, nope. Student savings, never put 0 because they think you're lying. Okay. So let's say you have $1,500 in the bank from birthday money. You have no, well, okay, let's say you bought one crypto coin for $100 and you don't have a business. Okay. So let me remind us now, our parents make $130,000 a year. Okay. $130,000 a year. Okay. So here's the net calculator. This is the family contribution, a little under $15,000. So that would mean if you were accepted to Princeton, that's what you would pay. $14,416. That's what you would pay. Your family income is $130,000 a year. So the reason I did this part of the activity is that I don't want you to think that you're not going to get financial aid because your parents make too much money. Maybe they do, but absolutely go through the figures, do these calculators before you do the FAFSA and see what comes out. If I doubled the income, this EFC would go up to about $40,000 a year. Okay. If I cut the income in half, this would go down to about $4,000 a year. Okay? So the killer here, let's say you apply to Penn and you apply to Drexel. You really kind of want to go to Drexel because they have certain programs that Penn doesn't have. But Drexel doesn't have the money to fulfill all of your need. And that's sad, because I'm sure Drexel wishes that they did. So they might give you $20,000. That would mean that in addition to this $14,400, you'd have to pay another $30,000 that you'd have to get from somewhere, a loan from a grandparent, a loan from the bank. And that just makes it really much harder to do. Okay, so let's go back. It's not the sticker price, it's the actual price that matters. Where else can you get financial support? From merit-based aid. So you can get merit-based aid for your academic achievement, your athletic prowess, your artistic skills, and or your community involvement in service. So academic achievement, you are a straight A student. Athletic prowess, you are the state high jump champion. Artistic schools, you are the concert mistress violinist for PYO. Community involvement and service to do. So merit-based aid. Now, remember, this is only 13% of all the aid that's given. The majority of merit-based aid comes from the individual colleges themselves. And typically you don't actually get a lot of aid from schools that, how would I put this, don't need to give it to you. So none of the Ivies give merit-based aid, none of them. None of the well-known national schools, MIT, for example, nope, to do. Some of the small liberal arts colleges that are super selective, Swarthmore, Amherst, nope, no merit aid for that to do. And for those of you who happen to be musicians, music is the most well-supported art or performance major. Music and engineering are actually the two best to do. Okay, so I'm going to skip a couple of these, right? So this is music stuff. When are the financial aid forms and scholarship applications due? Well, both the FAFSA and the profile open on October 1st of the student's senior year. So for those of you who are juniors and thinking, oh, I'm going to get my parents to do this ahead, don't. Because if they started doing the FAFSA, that would be for this year. That would be for this year, for a student who is a senior now. Okay, so you want to submit it, complete it and submit it as soon after October 1st as you can. So you're thinking, well, what? Well, wait a minute. How can I do, their years isn't even finished. My parents haven't done their taxes. None of that is done. Well, the FAFSA doesn't ask for the taxes of the year in which you're doing the FAFSA. It's the year before. It's the year before. So if you're a senior, they're not looking for the 2022 taxes. They're looking for 2021. And for those of you who are juniors, they're not going to be looking for the 2023 taxes. They want the 2022. So you have that. These forms are not difficult to do. Now, the merit-based scholarships, their deadlines are all over the board. Some of them are in the fall of senior year. Some of them are in the spring of senior year. There are very few merit scholarships that are open for juniors to apply. But I'll tell you, the ones that are pretty significant to do. Where do you find more information? studentaid.gov, finaid.org, the financial aid office website of each individual college. The financial aid people want to help you. They have rules. They can't abide by anything but those rules. If there are certain exceptions, you can appeal. There may be certain circumstances like let's say your parents split up when you were 3 years old. You haven't heard a word from your mother in 13 years. You're supposed to get your mother to fill out the profile because the profile asks for the divorced or separate. No, you never heard from her. So you can appeal and say, hey, I can't get this information to you because I have no idea where my mother is. So there are ways that you can appeal this. It's not all set in stone to do. Okay. And then each state and district agency. So here in Pennsylvania, this FIA website, you can get information about the state grants. The state will give up to about $4,800 per student if you go to school in Pennsylvania. If you go to Princeton, you get a maximum of $800 a year, maximum for that. And that's need-based. That's not. Now, of course, Princeton will be happy to let FIA give you $800, and they'll be happy to let the federal government give you $7,000 because that's less money than they need to give. So that money comes first, federal and state money, then the money from the school to do. Okay. So yay, look at us. Look at how smart we are. Right. So any questions? Let's do that. Any questions that we have from any of that?
I have a few questions about the webinar. So I know that it's recording. So how do you get those recordings to rewatch them?
Not a problem, Bella. You would email, Josh, they would email Gabby, because Gabby is curating them. Gabby Rodriguez is curating them. They go to her.
So I think Gabby will send them out at the end of it. I can text them and ask, but also if you reach out to them, I'm sure they would also be happy to send them. But I will ask them, and they'll probably email them out at some point.
Right. And Karen, you had a question about, a copy of this presentation? Well, if you want one, I'm going to put in my email address. Email me. Ta-da! I'll send you one. I'll send you the slide deck and whatever else that we talk about to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome to do. Right. So what a mess, right? All this stuff that we have to do for financial aid and all of that, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So let me show you a couple other things. Since we don't have a lot of people, I'm actually going more quickly, and I'm going to get through mostly everything now. So we went on the financial aid form. So here's the FAFSA. Okay, this is the FSA where you go. So the first thing, again, you want to get your ID. So you get your ID first, then you do the FAFSA and go through all of this to do, right? So this is where you get the FAFSA, studentaid.gov, and then the FAFSA itself, it'll take you to the website to do the FAFSA. Is this it? Yeah. This is what the FAFSA looks like. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? So the first 2 pages are information about when you do it and what states do what and blah, blah, blah. What is the FAFSA form? And the next pages are all information about you. Now, this is done online. Please don't do this on paper, please, please. I know that some people are a little bit wary of the internet, and I get that. I totally get that. And if you feel that you don't want to risk sending your information electronically, you can print this out and do a paper copy of it. Okay. Again, I recommend doing it online. So this is all identifying information about you, the student, and some about your parent. And this is going to ask you about questions about, oh, are you going to college now? No, I'm not going to college now. And it asks you whether you can be considered an independent student. Now, let's be clear about this. You are not an independent student if your aunt and uncle are caring for you. You're not an independent student if you're living with your grandparents. You're not an independent student if one of your parents is absent. There are the specific criteria you must meet. Ready? You are independent if you are 24 years of age or older. You are independent if you already have a first bachelor's degree. You are independent if you have a child. You are independent if you are married. Please let me encourage you to neither get married nor have children to get a better financial aid deal. Because in the long run, you're going to pay a lot more for being married and having a kid. Don't do that. If you are a ward of the court, if you are an orphan, if you have spent any time after age 13 in foster care, and if you are an emancipated minor, a judge has said you are independent on your own. That's it. That's the only way that you would be considered an independent student. Now, there are certain circumstances, dad left when you were young, mom remarried, who fills out the FAFSA? Well, mom. But if mom remarried someone who is also contributing income to the household, then that income is reported also to do. Okay, so all this information here, how much money, this is the student now, how much money did the student make, et cetera, et cetera. And again, all student information. What's your date of birth? Are you married? Do you have a kid? This is all the independent stuff. So now we come to the purple. This is your parent. This is all financial information about your parent, their bank account information, their income. And again, if your parent has done their taxes, and again, please don't tell me if they haven't, I don't want to know, right? Then this is going to be easy because this information is going to be readily available to do. Then we come back to the student here. These are the questions about household and then the number of schools. You can actually list up to 10 schools to get your FAFSA. You can list up to 10 schools. Well, do people apply to more than 10 schools? Well, sometimes they do. I'm not sure that that's necessary if you do your research. Not really sure you need to do that. But if you do apply to more than 10, what do? Well, you wait 7 to 10 days. Your FAFSA is then processed by each school. You go back in, you sign back into the FAFSA. You go here to step 6 and you delete all the colleges that are in it and put in the new ones. And then FAFSA will send it to those new colleges that you put in to do. Right? And this is where your signature goes. And if you have an electronic signature, goes right in, you send it, and you get your estimated family contribution right away. You will literally see it right away. It will be there right away. I'm going to tell you a story about the FAFSA and helping a family. About 10 years ago or so, I served as a counselor at Cherry Hill High School West over in South Jersey. Yes, I live here, but I did the old reverse commute thing to do. And I had several students that I knew were struggling financially. One of these students was the eldest of 4. Father was gone, many years gone. Mom had emigrated from China. English still not really good after about 20 years, but mom and daughter came in so we could do the FAFSA together because I know they would have been overwhelmed. So mom brought in all of her information and she trusted us to do it. And we went through it. And after about a half an hour, we were finished. So we pressed the button to submit it and it came up. The estimated family contribution was 0. And the young woman that I was helping started to cry. And she said, Mr. Vanni, I'm not going to get any money. And then I started to cry because EFC 0 means you don't have to pay any money. She ended up attending Rowan University in South Jersey. And Rowan has a program where students that have an EFC of 0 pay $0. And I'm so proud of her that she made it through and got her degree. And thanks to the FAFSA, thanks to that work that we did, I was happy to be a part of it. So there are occasionally good messages that come from this. Okay. So here is where you get the profile. This is the College Board website, and you go to where it says CSS profile. And of course, the first thing you want to do is to check out which schools need this. Okay, so some of the schools are a little obscure, Adrian College, but some of these are like the most well-known schools: Amherst, Barnard, Bates, Bennington, the Berkeley College of Music. So these are the well-known schools, and these are the schools that have a lot of money that they can give. So if we look at the more local schools here, we'll see some names that we recognize. So here's old Drexel, ding, ding, ding. Here's the Curtis Institute of Music, the second most difficult school in the country to get in. So anytime one of those Harvard people starts talking about Harvard, you go, no, 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 no. Our Philadelphia school, the Curtis, is harder to get into than your school, which it is to do. So where's some other ones that we would know? Franklin and Marshall, that's in Lancaster. We know Franklin and Marshall. Gettysburg. Here's old Harvard. Hello, Harvard. Haverford College. So there's a whole bunch, about 200 altogether. And some of these are actually scholarship, like Buttonwood Foundation. They're actually scholarship programs to do. So this is where you would find information about the CSS profile.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Bella.
So for the CSS, do you have to pay the fee for each college that you have to do it for? Or is it like a one-time form? Or do you do it for different schools and you have to pay for each one?
You pay a $25 registration fee, Bella, and then each school is $15.
Okay.
Yeah, that don't get me started. It's, like, does the College Board really need more money? I don't think so, but this is what we're stuck with to do. This is the process. And again, I'll mention, this is not often the case. Well, this is not the case in any other country. This is just what we do here in the US to do. Okay, so this is great. I am finished. Normally we would go to 8 o'clock, but I'm finished because we had a smaller group and I could go through this more quickly. So let me just ask now again, if there are other questions that you have, that anybody has, please let me know and I'll be happy to stay on and answer for a while.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me because the last time I spoke, it was messed up, but I have two questions.
Go ahead, Rome.
One of them is that if you're accepted for like very high scholarships, does that affect financial aid?
That's a great question, because the answer is many of the times it will and other times it will not. Some schools allow you to stack scholarships, which means if you get a $20,000 a year grant from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, they won't take away the $20,000 that they've given you at the college. It means that you would have much more to work with. But other schools, Rowan, will take that away and subtract it. That is going to depend on the school. And that's a really great question that you asked, and something that you want to ask each school.
Okay, thank you. And the second question I have is, if you're, let's say you're going to like a community college and you want to transfer to like a private university or something, does the same financial aid packages like still work for that same thing? Like
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any accredited institution, 2-year or 4-year, any one, Rowan. So if you do CCP for 2 years and then decide that you want to go to Duke, for instance, then you would apply to Duke as a transfer applicant, and you would fill out the FAFSA and the profile as if you were a first-year student.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sure.
I have another question.
Sure, Bella.
So for the FASFA, do you put it on the Common App, or you submit it like straight from the FASFA website?
Completely separate, Bella. Completely separate. The financial aid packages are completely separate from the application, and that's by design. Okay, because let's say I see that you're applying to my school, and let's say your name is Bella Gates, Gates, and I see that your father's name is William Gates, and I see that his job is CEO Microsoft. Well, I'm going to assume he has like $1 bazillion. So I don't want that to influence my decision as to whether I'm going to accept you. The only time financial matters matter to a college is if they're going to their wait list and the money has run out. So if you're on the wait list of a college and you can pay the full amount asked of you, you will move up in the wait list. That's a little bit slimy, I agree, but that's the truth. I want you to know what actually happens with this. So
Wait,
financial aid is separate from application.
Okay, so is the wait list for like acceptance wait list or the FASFA wait list, like for the money?
Acceptance wait list. So you
Okay.
apply to, say, the University of Pennsylvania, and Penn says, well, you know what, Bella, you're pretty darn good, but we sort of don't have enough room for all the people that are really pretty darn good. So we're going to put you on a wait list. And then 3 or 4 weeks will pass. And then there are some people that are accepted to Penn that decide, nope, I'm going to Washington University in St. Louis. So now there's a space for you, and they say, Bella, come to Penn. So that's how the wait list works. The wait list begins right after the applications are sent out. I'm sorry, the decisions are sent out. So the wait list begins in April, and it can last as long as July 15th. I mean, you could conceivably get an email from Penn on July 15th that says, hey, we've got a space for you. Want to come? So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure.
Hi, I have another question.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know if you talked about this earlier because I came in a little late. But do you know anything about the little loan forgiveness thing that the government is doing right now? Like loan forgiveness?
Well, Rowan, I know it's a big mess. That's what I know. The proposal that President Biden put forward is on hold. One of the state appeals courts, the federal appeals courts, decided that they need more information to see if the president has the authority to do this, because normally it's Congress that does funding and Congress that did the Higher Education Authority Act. So they're in the process of looking at that. So right now, the answer, Rowan, is that it's on hold. So we don't know. We don't know.
Okay, thank you. That's my last question.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but hopefully a decision will come down at some point soon. Yes. All right. Shall we call it a night and go out and wander around in this miserable rain? Let's do that. Just kidding. I do. So thank you all for attending tonight. I hope you got something out of this.